rolling? Go.
Yeah, we're live. All right. Hey, everybody. It's Chris and Mike from All Things 3D, and we're
together today.
We're together. Mike comes to my office. What a privilege. What an honor. Today we are our All Things 3D Week in Review for the week of Friday, August 8th. 2014.
We're going to have to be close.
Yeah, we're close.
Today.
We're inside each other's personal bubble.
Uh-huh.
So, so we're going to talk about what happened over the last week, our Friday episode. We got some cool topics to share with you, and we've got a special cameo appearance, hopefully by one of our favorite people. You can see, too, on our live cam, we've got the Stratasys printing a big old part. It's got a 140-hour build. So one of my records. It's a big part.
Cross our fingers.
Yeah, exactly. Crossing the fingers is a big daddy. So very cool. So so we'll get right into the news. I will share with you my first news item for today, which is 3D Printer World Expo Seattle to feature first 3D printer headed to space. So that's fine and dandy. We all knew that they were sending this 3D printer to space, made in space. But the Expo attendees at the Seattle convention will have a chance to get their own 3D ideas printed in space. So they're going to obviously have a competition of some sort. Yeah, pretty cool.
So do we know what the made in space FDM printer who
kind of
made
the details?
it?
I think that they're probably going to unveil some of that at this Expo.
Okay, so hopefully you'll give us a big clue in on the next review. What day is it? August 22nd. So we're looking, what, 2 weeks from now?
Yeah.
So maybe you can give us a scoop on it.
From what it looks like to me is it looks like some Stratasys type parts kind of thrown into a box that's made to contain the plastic in case of an emergency. Or
I was thinking of that too, but I didn't want to give them a shout out unless it was actually true.
Yeah. Well, it looks like Stratasys parts.
As you'll notice in one of our other links, they are making a little too much money right now. We can't keep giving them props.
Hey, they're pioneers. Yeah. They've done a lot for the industry.
That's true.
At the same time, they maybe step on some people's toes. But hey, it's capitalism.
Yep.
So that's just the world we live in. Not necessarily.
Hey, so it's already up there, isn't it? Huh?
Well, so this is the zero-G
yeah,
plane. So they're doing the testing in the zero-G plane, showing. So made in space. They're just enabling in-space manufacturing, which is obviously super important for our journey towards the interplanetary, interstellar travel. Being able to manufacture your own parts on the fly is extremely important.
I'm going to apply for that job, but I might be a little too old. Chris,
yeah.
We'll have to leave it to the younger folks.
Yeah, well, I like Elon's quote, which is, "I want to go to Mars," or he wants to die on Mars, but not on impact.
Hey, speaking
That's
of,
a really good quote.
I'm going to try and solicit Audible.com to support our podcast in the future, but there's a book out there that everybody's reading or listening to called The Martian, or Martian, which you should get a hold of.
It's about terraforming?
No, it's about a guy, I guess they did a exploration, but gets left behind. So it kind of goes through some hard science of how he can survive for a year. So It seems to be a big seller right now. I'm going to start it probably next week. So if you're a Audible book listener, Audible.com, I've been doing it for, over a decade now.
Yeah, and you get a credit a month.
15 years I've been with them.
It's great.
Well, actually, depending on, you can get a platinum or the silver or the gold in up to 2 months. Hey, it looks like we've got Brian joining us, and he's got video. He's going to be our special guest crasher, but we're going to mute you right now and continue with our news items. So hang in there.
How do we? There we go.
There you go. So we'll bring you back in a little bit.
Yeah. So on to let's do Mike's first news item here, which is.
Yeah. What's interesting is that I brought this up. One, because I think it's a cool idea, but I think it's already been done. And I'm going to show you how it's already been done as soon as we kind of go through it. But this is called the Activate, and it looks like it's a homegrown project. Essentially, it looks like basically a ARM-based Linux system with a not even an active or a capacitant, but a resistive screen at 1024. So it seems like it's a lot of components that are kind of backdated a little bit. Just go ahead and scroll down a little bit. And it supports a lot of the open source software. The thing is I guess this was actually created in England. The pricing seems a little bit over the top for what you get. But, I mean, if you want to support them. But I have another idea, so why don't we cut back to the camera. And I mentioned this in my tweet this yesterday, and that's to go with, oh, what happened to our camera? Go ahead and, oh. Click on you again.
Clicking on you.
Click on the screen again. Okay, that
glitches. Yeah. Well, on to the next.
Well, no, actually, let's see if we can solve this little problem before we move on. Muting? Yeah, we even muted ourselves. Well, that's what happens when we go outside the journey area. Great.
Okay. Well, here, let's try this.
All right. We'll go on to the next news item, and then oh, it looks like we don't have any control over it.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, we'll go on to the next news item here.
Actually, can you unplug the camera and plug it back in?
Sure.
Well, and actually, I'll continue the talk. So what I was going to talk about, since I can't show you, is the Acer Iconia W4, which is a Windows 8 machine, but you could put Linux on it if you want to. But it is a true Intel machine. It's based on their Neutrino chipset, but it's one of their more robust versions. So it's actually a real PC and not an ARM-based machine. And well, we may have to do this without you looking at our faces for the rest of this thing. So that's kind of odd. Actually, no, we have another. Hang on, we have another idea. It'll be crummy, but we can still get some video.
There we go. Technology. The live stream. All right.
Yeah. So we actually may be delayed, but you can hear us at least and see us. But essentially, this is the device, and maybe you can actually hold the camera while I bring it. So this is here we go. This is an Iconia W4. It's an Acer product, but it's a tablet. It's a little bit better resolution in that device. Like I said, it runs Windows 8.1 Update 1. Oops. And so essentially, you got your panel, but I normally go to the desktop. But it's got a full Windows desktop, and you can bring up any type of software that you want. Pro Interface, Cura, pretty much everything works on it. But obviously, like the ARM, it's not the highest speed processor, but it should work pretty well. And yeah, might be a little better option. I don't know when that thing will actually be released. This is available for about $250, $300 max, depending on the memory that you get with it. Plus, it has a micro SD card, has an HDMI slot, it has dual radios. Yeah, pretty much. And then you can just kind of attach it to the front of whatever.
Right.
You know, we can put it right here over on your Rostock Mac. See, so you could buy these a dozen of these and just put them on your machine as a smart panel. So that was the reason that I got it, and I use it with the V9 Creator when I had it. So that was the purpose of it. So kind of a neat direction to go. So go ahead and move on to the next item, Chris.
All right. Well, this one is close to my heart. Repetier releases Windows 1.0. So Repetier software, for those of you that are FDM printers, obviously on the open source, they're kind of at the forefront of the open source slicing software, or I should say control software. They have released their 1.0 version of the software, and good news is they have implemented Cura into their slicing. So by default now, Cura is their slicing. So for those of you that have used Repetier, know that there's a new version out there for you. I use this software. I use Repetier. It's open source, well, it was open source. I don't think it's open source anymore.
What is?
Repetier.
Yeah, that's what, if I remember correctly, in our previous podcast.
But I think you can still get the source code, especially for the earlier versions.
Correct.
But the new one, and I think Cura is open source.
Cura is still open source.
So they may have had to open source it again, because with these GPL licenses, you know, or some of these open source licenses, if you implement some portion of your code as open source, like Cura, you're required by the license to open up your software. So who knows? I don't know. I haven't heard any news on that. But just know that Repetier Host 1.0 is out with implementation for Cura. So people that like Cura but also Repetier, they now are working together, and it could be a good solution for you running these FFF machines. So very cool.
Cool. So the next item that we got is the LulzBot. LulzBot? Yeah, something like that.
LulzBot.
Yeah, which Chris is going to bring up here shortly. Well, we talked about this in the past, and it's a really robust printer, but it was around $2,000. So what they've done now is they've taken it and put it in kit form. So it depends on how valuable your time is, or if you feel that you're competent enough to actually create one of these or put one together. And most of us who watch this podcast or are involved with it can do that. But one of the things that sets the LulzBot apart from others is its robust frame, large build size, and is that a single extruder or a dual extruder? It looks like a single.
It has a single, but it looks like the same exact. Oh, it's a KITTAZ, because their kit printer, or their assembled printer, is the TAZ 4, is what the latest one is, and so this is the KITTAZ. So, but the TAZ itself, they are in the beta stages of a dual extruder printer.
Okay, so that would be an additional.
So yeah, but all of being that it is a LulzBot product, which is ALIF objects out of I think Boulder, Colorado, they have all their source files are completely open. It's a completely open source design, so they're all the files, the 3D files to print anything, including upgrades, future improvements, and dual extrusion capability, are available on their website. I've already done the research because I've been looking at this printer to add to my.
Yeah, I know you have.
Printers.
One of the reasons I brought this up.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's robust. It has a lot of the features that you'd want in a 3D printer. It has
large build area.
In fact, the resolution is a little better than some of the others out there. Your layer thickness can be from 0.075. Normally that's 0.1 up to 0.35. So the accuracy of their Z is pretty good from what I've heard. It looks like it uses 3mm filament. I'm not a big fan of it, but the Ultimaker uses it as well. It works, but I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of that. But the important thing is that this thing is a durable 3D printer.
Right.
But I thought I'd bring it up for you, Chris, that if you wanted to get one, you can now get it a little cheaper. You just have to put some sweat into it.
Yeah, and for any of those people out there that like to tinker, like I do, you know, I built the Rostock Max from CME CNC, And so these kind of kits really appeal to me because I just, you learn so much by building a machine that you wouldn't. I mean, it's all fine and dandy to be able to just pull one of these machines out of the box and print on it. But really, if you want to do some of the problem solving that goes along with 3D printing, especially nowadays, we're still in kind of the early stages, and you want to be able to learn as much as possible, you really can only do that by going through the process of building a machine. So, these kind of kits are invaluable for tinkerers and people that are into this early stages of 3D printing.
Yep, so if you're looking for a 3D printer, this might be the direction to go. Can't go wrong with LulzBot. So on the next one.
Yeah, on to the next news item. This is pretty cool. The MIT students use lasers to restart failed 3D print jobs. So this is a TechCrunch article. Essentially what these MIT students have come up with is a 3D scanner using lasers that identify the average height of where the print job left off once it failed. And
so essentially what you're saying is that they scan it and then take a topology and then determine that particular what height and then just restart at that particular point?
And just start at that point. Pretty cool. So that could be a future upgrade to Repetier that we see. They are using it with Solidoodle at this point. But it's also not only figuring out the height of where to start, but actually the position in the XY of where the object is.
Okay. Well, that makes sense.
So,
however, I like the low-tech process that we talked about last week, which is just put an opto-isolator to know when your filament stops, and then at that particular point, you'll identify exactly where in your G-code you stop, and you just continue from there. It just seems like a little bit of overkill, but working in the scan industry, I wonder how accurate it will be.
Right.
But
right.
Yeah, obviously another neat idea.
Yeah. And,
MIT.
Yeah, and again, I think that the opto-isolator is definitely a good idea for when you're out of filament. But sometimes you'll have a jam or something that's unforeseen, other than filament that has been run out. You've run out of filament, so this might be a good way. But you can see the machine is printing where it left off, which is a pretty cool feature. I have to say that's pretty neat. So, all right.
Okay.
On to the next.
So what is the next item? Yeah, it's
Stratasys second quarter earnings are a blowout.
Yeah, well, obviously Stratasys is just making money hand over fist, and what was really interesting about this article was the fact that MakerBot played such a big role as far as bringing in revenues for the company. I guess I'm not too surprised. I think that MakerBot has done a really good job of getting into the educational system and into that market, and so that's where I think they're putting a lot of their efforts and moving forward with it. As we talked about in previous episodes, I own a MakerBot 2, and it's been one of my more reliable printers, so I can't really complain about it. But some of their newer models, I think, are a little, not a little, overpriced, period. And then what would we call it? Their Big Daddy, their tall unit, which is close to 65 or 56 to 60, I think the price went down, I found out is only a single extruder, and more importantly, it only deals with PLA. And so with so many other options out there, I'm a little surprised at their earnings and their revenues. But again, if they've got a good stream, and obviously it's almost become a household name, MakerBot, with 3D printing. So definitely. I'm not surprised with it, but that tall one that you see there, I think is way overpriced for what you can do with it. And I was really sadly disappointed to find out it was only a single extruder. But that brings us up to the next item, which is what I wanted to segue into. I found this because I was working with Jan, if you remember Jan, one of the guy from Quebec that designs me Stark, my little Stark. Yeah, not this guy, but that's MakerShop is the actual site that people go to sell their ware or give it out. And that's what this guy's complaining about, is a lot of people use Thingiverse to put their products out there, but I guess a lot of people have been putting some time into, go ahead and go back to the blog item, into putting things on Thingiverse, but he actually took some time to read the, what do you want to call it, the terms of service, and didn't really like the fact is that pretty much if you put it out there, they have rights to use it, and they have been pursuing patents on things that people have been putting out there, and a lot of us have seen the rumors or actually seen. I think there's an extruder that they're using now that they want to try to patent. There's a few other things, and it appears that some people are really not happy with that and are either complained, but it says this guy complained, and next thing you know, all of his models were deleted. So he said, fine. So using MakerShop, so I wrote in here and said, hey, we've got somewhere else you can go, and that's UImagine. This is done by Ultimaker, and they really believe in the open source. And so if you want another option from Thingiverse because you feel like you own the rights to something, go out to UImagine.
Go
that's
out
our suggestion, or maybe try
follow your
makershop.co. Yeah, follow your dreams. It's kind of a neat little thing. So that's pretty much what and you said you've got some comments as well about that.
Yeah, well, MakerBot, they are doing a great job on distribution. Obviously, it looks like they have some corporate secret handshakes, because here's an image from inside Home Depot from yesterday. So they are definitely making their way into California and New York with filament on the shelves of Home Depot, which is, that's pretty cool. That's pushing it into the mainstream for sure.
Yeah. And obviously they only carry PLA now. I don't know if you're aware of that. They don't have ABS, but they have really good PLA.
Right.
I mean, I have some that when I got the MakerBot, and it actually seems to be the most stable of the stuff that I get. But I find that it to be a little bit more pricey. So hopefully, being in Home Depot, that might push the price down a little bit. Fingers crossed. But if it is the truth that they're going to have a shelf at Home Depot, if you have an emergency situation, you could run out there and move forward with it. So.
Yeah. So, and kind of my last news item for today is a update on the Peachy printer, which everybody's been kind of looking forward to because it's just such a cheap printer. So this is just a quick news item for anybody that's interested in the Peachy printer. The Peachy printer is kind of an exciting new take on an SLA printer, which is floating resin on top of water, salt water, I think, saline solution.
Yeah, and we kind of talked to somebody else, if you remember, from Australia. I can't remember the name of the product now, that's doing something similar. Do they have any real close-ups of their prints? Yeah, there you go. If you notice, there seems to be some, I wouldn't say deformity, but some, what would you call it?
What she's claiming, it's not quite calibrated, or it's not dimensionally accurate quite yet. So he's addressing those issues in the video.
Yeah, but there seems to be artifacts as well, some rippling, or if you look at, like, say, the Form 1 or even the little RP, it has a smooth finish, and that doesn't seem to carry over to these type of printers where you're floating it. So,
but with as cheap as this Peachy printer is, $99. It's kind of hard to complain. I mean, you really can't beat it.
That's true.
Especially to these people that are giving their money in Kickstarter. The way I look at Kickstarter is it's almost business. You are assuming some risk by getting involved in the Kickstarter, and so with the Peachy printer, you're kind of, it's $99. It's like anymore. What is $100? I mean, it's $100. You could maybe go on a date and take your significant other out to a dinner and a movie for $100, or you could have a 3D printer. So, not saying you should do one or the other, but
maybe both.
Yeah, maybe
bring
both.
Yoda with you.
Yeah, there you go. So,
well, on that note, I think it's time to bring in our guest crasher.
Oh, guest crasher time.
Because he makes resins for SLA printers.
Plus and he makes also great. He's doing a great job. So, welcome to the show, Brian.
Yep.
Glad to see you again.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and you've been very patient there. I've been watching in the little screen down there, and you haven't been making faces or doing other things that we would be offended by. So we really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
Hey,
I'm paying attention to what you're saying. That's what's going on.
Okay, cool. Yeah, well, we apologize for the technical, our video feed not quite working, but you know.
Yeah, well, we came up with a.
Yeah, so yeah, I've actually been having a grand old time with my little SLA my little RPer, printing with some made solid resin,
Awesome.
some red stuff. I think I'm gonna go on today and hopefully get some more in the mail, maybe some other colors.
Awesome.
But I needed to get my feet wet first, and I have all kinds of little prints. And so, you have one of these little RP machines, correct?
We don't actually. We just send resin next day down to Brad pretty often, and he runs a bunch of prints. We had one when they were doing the. He was sending it out for, I guess, it was going all around the country to different maker fairs, and so we had it for that amount of time. We actually never printed with it because we didn't have a projector to run it. But we are trying to buy one from him right now, us and a couple other people.
Yeah. So it's a really fun little design using the Petri dish, and this last week we saw See Me CNC. We had See Me CNC on the show on Monday, and they came on and were telling us all about their little DLP printer. So they just unveiled one. So that'll be another outlet for you to.
The little drip, or
it's called
not the little drip.
What's it? The droplet.
The droplet.
Yeah.
You said
droplet. So that'll be another outlet for you to get your resin, get people on board, because they sold out of their beta units really fast.
Right. We just had a customer from. I did a Skype call yesterday with a guy in Israel who bought one of their beta units, and was trying to figure out if we could provide resin for them for it. And the answer was I didn't know at the time, so we'll find out. It'll work. It's all about just getting it to work right.
Right.
What was that again? I'm sorry, I was distracted.
They're kind of in the process. There was a customer from Israel, he says, and he's kind of in the process of figuring out, he might be the first person in the droplet to print with the made solid resin.
Right. Very cool.
Right.
Yeah, well, we had a good discussion with them, and we asked them probing questions. By the way, I sent them a thank you email, never got a reply back, so I don't know if we're on their favorites list anymore.
Oh, I got an email from them saying it was great to be on.
Oh, excellent.
So you may have just missed it. I might have to forward it to you.
Yeah, maybe they didn't like me and they liked you.
No, they're great. Those guys are great. I run a Rostock Max, and that thing's just bulletproof. Yeah.
But if you didn't get a chance to watch it live, it's out on YouTube. Plus, I will have the podcast up this weekend, so you can listen to it as well. Yeah, cool guys, interesting. And like I said, we had some probing questions, like why did you choose blue? We kind of talked about that, Brian, for the optical portion. And what they found out is that under practical purposes, it really didn't matter. It didn't seem to affect theirs. Which, if you look at it, it's dark blue. So it's pretty much acting like a light attenuator. Plus, it doesn't, like other printers, it doesn't fully encapsulate the bed. It's just a small window.
Right.
So that's probably the reason that wasn't a problem. And,
the smaller the window, the smaller the window, the better off you'll be. If it's a really dark blue, if you can make the blue more translucent, as soon as you put some white into something, then it'll light up the entire bed, and the bigger your bed is, the more overcuring that you'll end up having. So if it's a small volume and it's a dark blue, it'll work out. We actually have a new blue that works out really well. We just made it slightly more translucent so that it would work a lot better.
Right. Yeah, you must be so excited that all these little SLA printers are now coming on the market, because now it's it just is going to be bringing more and more and more customers your way, huh?
Right. Well, we knew this was going to happen. We knew that SLA had this. It could beat it on the speed if you did it with a projector. It would win on the detail. And then we knew that we could do a lot more on the formulation side with SLA, and so we're really excited to see a lot of printers coming out. We just want to make sure that they're all quality printers, and I think that's the thing that's really exciting about Brad's printer, the little RP, because we had a customer in our office yesterday who bought the ProJet 1200, and they were really disappointed with the details, and so I took them to Brad's Kickstarter page, and they were extremely impressed by some of the details of the models. And so they said, well, we should send our 3D Systems printer back and buy like 4 of these little RPs.
For sure.
And that was
should
shocking.
quote that, Brian. You should quote that, Brian, and send it off to Brad. We got a little RP because and sent our Stratasys back.
Yeah, I actually sent him a file that they wanted to print that the 3D Systems printer couldn't handle. So if he can hit it, then they'll buy a bunch of his printers. So we'll see what he can do.
Hey, we're going to have to go down and work for Brad.
Yeah.
This is all over. He thinks, I might sell a few. I don't know if you know Brad really. He's kind of easygoing.
Yeah.
And he doesn't really know the phenomena he's creating here.
Oh, yeah, he has no idea what he's
doing. And he's put a lot
into.
of time in creating these good prints, and I think he's going to do a good job putting this out and backing it. Like Chris said, he's got his. Mine's in the mail.
Yeah.
So we'll both have one, so that'll be really neat.
Oh, yeah.
But before we move on, I notice you've got the Firecast resin, but there's another one that you're going to be coming out with soon, and I've actually had a chance to play with it. And that's the Tough resin.
Yeah, we're waiting.
I'm waiting to get my hands
on some of this
as your logo for it, you know. But I actually had a client that I printed some parts out, and he gave me some feedback yesterday that he thinks this is going to work. He's going to do some things like test temperature, but I was printing with the gray SLA from Formlabs, but he said already that he feels that this part's going to be more durable. And, you know, we've already talked about some things that can be refined, but overall, in my experience in working with it already, I think you've got a hit there. It is a more durable material. At the same time, it has a little pliability that you don't see in some of the others. If you bend the others too much, they'll just snap. This seems to have a little pliability to it that you don't have with the others. And in the case of my client, he has to actually create a vacuum, so that may actually work well when you have to screw it together to actually form a better seal. Even though he's using some O-rings, I think overall, I think this is the right direction. So hey, thanks, Brian, for coming out with something like this. Now all you have to need to come out with is an FDA. But speaking of that, I'm going to be working with a local dentist here who uses the iTero laser scanning system to actually replace one of my, I don't have a bridge, but I have a filling that keeps breaking. But we're going to scan my mouth and use the cast resin to actually cast a rare metal. I think it's probably going to be a gold alloy. So probably in 2 to 3 weeks, we'll probably have a little report to show how the fire resin was able to help fix my teeth.
Right. Yeah. Hopefully, hopefully it all works out. It should. The Firecast resin has enough detail to do something like that.
So, I can't wait. My actually one of my best friends, he actually recently a couple months ago came over and designed his fiance's wedding ring in SolidWorks. So he did the whole thing in SolidWorks, and then he had it a wax 3D print made. He had to do it a couple times because the first cast failed. Actually, I think maybe he failed 2 casts. But you know, for a lot of people, you know, going and buying a wedding ring is this big process, and you know, a lot of people take their lady to go, but they also want it to be a surprise, obviously. And so more and more people are looking at making their own rings. And so there's these foundries that are, these silversmith foundries that are kind of popping up locally everywhere, kind of like the Makerspaces and the 3D print labs and these things. And so this is like marrying this so perfectly, because wax prints are, you know, they're kind of expensive. Not that this is not. I mean,
you know somebody, a silversmith here?
Yeah, so there's a silversmith over in KITTAZ.
We need to get together, Chris, because as I mentioned before, I'll hand over a little Firecast to you, and you could try it on the little RP and work with somebody and move forward with that.
So he printed this wax, and the wax masters are pretty fragile too. That's the other thing. They're extremely fragile, but extremely detailed. But the machines themselves are super expensive, and so and you know, and it's wax. So this is like basically opening up a whole other market to these people now that have these, like me, that have these little RP machines or these little DLP SLA machines, and now we can do casts. So I cannot wait to, you know, do some jewelry and, you know, bring home my lady something nice, you know, and bring her something that like I made. Because when Frankie pulled out the ring that he made, you know, and asked his fiancee Amanda to pop the question, you know, she was just that much more blown away because he put, I mean, it's like he put his heart and his soul into making this thing exactly what she wanted, you know, and didn't have to rely on somebody else. It basically took another person out of the step. He was able to just go from SolidWorks to essentially this silversmith and get the thing cast out of exactly the metal he wanted, you know. And they went and picked a Montana sapphire. They went on a trip and picked out the sapphire. So he designed the ring to fit the stone exactly the way they cut it and everything, you know. So they, you know, there's a lot more kind of thought put into it, which to me would mean a lot. It means a lot when you're picking out a piece of jewelry for your significant other, rather than just going and buying a out of the store, you know, kind of special thing.
You know, we just started getting the first pictures back of rings that have been made with fire casts that have stones in them, and it's been really impressive. And yesterday, my co-founder Lance was actually designing a ring, and he's printing it in fire cast for his wife's anniversary, and he's going to send it down to one of our partners here to get it casted as well. And so you're exactly right. And when you think about like the dream that 3D printing was supposed to be, this is actually moving in that direction where you can have like these new entrepreneurs that are coming up and they're making rings for other people that are customized. And when you see Obama talk about, you know, 3D printing bringing back some of the jobs that we lost, bringing back some of our strength on the manufacturing side, you can see how like materials like this actually help make that happen. It'll be an impressive movement. But also based off your feedback, like you just gave, that you know, you want to make a small ring for yourself, but it's not your profession. That's part of what made us start to offer smaller bottle sizes of like 250 milliliters or so, because you'll probably never need a liter of fire cast resin. And so really trying to respond to what the market wants. But it seems like, I mean, we've been shocked at the number of people who contact us on support saying the same thing. They say, I want to propose to my girlfriend, or I want to make something for my boyfriend. Can you help me? It's been impressive. Yeah,
well, you know, as we have found out, the Firecast is a little bit more than other types of resins. So I think that's an excellent idea, Brian, to be able to just buy a small amount that makes it a little bit more palatable. So
I see 1 liter. Is there a...
It hasn't gone up yet. It's going up this week, and so the pricing that we're gonna that we think we're gonna go out with is that we're gonna do a half liter for 150, and then a quarter liter is going to be 79. And again, like these prices, like $275 for a liter is not expensive to someone who casts in platinum as a job or gold as a job. Right. But if you're doing a one-off,
I'll emphasize that as well.
And then And then one of Brad's little RP packages is actually going to have, I think, 200 milliliters of Firecast resin in it as well.
Good.
Well, so I have, I mean, there's a million ideas, obviously, that all focus around this, and but one of them is I think we need to get a network of foundries, silversmiths that you know, with a map of people that have fired this Firecast resin in their ovens, cooked different metals with it, you know, or actually worked with it, the technology, and like lay the foundation for a network of these people that are able to cast using this method and come up with a map kind of thing and a directory, maybe even on your website, where we can get in touch with these people. I think he's hinting
something there, Brian.
You know what I mean? And so yeah. Or not only that, but people that are running the printers, if you have a printer, so it might even be not a shop.madesolid.com, but like directory.madesolid.com or printers.madesolid. People that are using the resin, so because not everybody's going to run a SLA machine.
Right, exactly.
But it is a totally different segment of the market than what most of these directories, like what's one of the directories?
Make XYZ.
Make XYZ. Or you know, those are more catered towards prototyping.
Right.
This is a jewelry market, you know.
Right. And so as of last week, we actually share an investor with one of those networks called Supply Better.
Right. And I work with them all the time.
And then, so what we want to do, we've actually talked about this whole thing. We want to try to work with them to have a network of people who have access to the resin, and then have those people be able to send that resin out to someone who can actually cast it and knows how to cast it well the right way, because not all casters are made equal. The other thing we've been trying to find are casting services that are able to produce like larger casts. So if you go back to the hard and tough page, for example, some of those objects are actually quite larger. Like there's brackets and things like that, and those are things that you would actually want to see sometimes in a metal, whether it be like a bronze. So for example, that bracket sitting right there on that bottle. There's no reason you can't turn that into a metal part as well if you have a kiln that's large enough to produce it. And the fire cast can print stuff that's that large also. So we're trying to put that network together, and we're just starting to find more people around the country that can do it.
Awesome.
Well, Brian, we really appreciate you being on.
No problem.
Because we got a late start. We got to get moving on. We got a couple more items but so we're kind of shoving you off now. No. So you're welcome to stay on with us till we finish up. We're pretty much wrapped up. As mentioned, today was kind of a special episode. We were going to do a little quick tour of the parts oven, so I'd kind of like to wrap up. We kind of have.
Well, I'm going to head out. I have to get to the office. All right. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right.
Hey, well,
yeah,
thank
great
you, Brian.
to see you, Brian. We'll see you next time.
All right. Bye.
All right.
So what I'd like to do now is I'm just going to hand over the camera to myself, and then we have an interesting, I wouldn't say situation, but if you remember last week we talked about the VR Spective from Stuxi and how they had to send me another one because there was a possibility that I may not have gotten it. But I did get it, and then they sent me another one. Well, since we kind of talked about their VR Spective and how it's a decent replacement or substitute for the Google Cardboard, I thought I'd give you ours, but it appears that they want to sponsor it, so they've given it to us free.
Woohoo!
So, Chris,
we may want to restart this broadcast so we can do the video on there.
but if we do that, then it stops.
Yeah.
So, but I just dropped this. Now I don't know how to get back in there. Okay. Oh, we're still in. Okay.
All right. It's like Christmas.
Yeah, it's like Christmas.
Okay. So we're opening all the way from Bielefelder, Paderborn, from Brevis. Oh, hopefully this VR Spective has reached you. Have fun. How nice of this gentleman. The Stuxi VR.
So essentially, as we talked about before, it's just a large sheet, probably laser cut.
Yeah, it's all laser cut. Foam.
To foam.
Lots of pieces to put together, and it
takes about 30 minutes.
Takes about 30 minutes to put together. The Stuxi.
And it comes with the lenses, and you just put your phone in it, and you have your own little VR equipment.
For €41.
Yes, and we've got a code for you if you want to get one of these. It's just use All Things 3D, and go out to their website and put the code in, and they'll give you a 10% discount as well.
All right.
So pretty cool.
Cool. So we opened it up on air, and
so why don't we just kind of head out now, and why don't you go ahead and
you got a microphone for me?
Yeah. You go ahead and unmute us for us to test it, see if we're.
Like that.
Yeah, are you talking?
Talk. Yeah.
Okay, great. So.
Okay.
Hey, Chris. So we're in the parts oven.
We are in parts of it. Let me turn on a light for you. So this is when you walk in. This is my humble abode. This is where you can see the parts that I print every day. My production machine is a Stratasys Fortis 250 MC. Real lucky to be able to run one of these. It's a real nice machine. The consumables are pretty expensive, but at the end of the day, the quality is just what you can do. So, like I said at the beginning of the program, it's printing 270-hour pieces back to back that get glued together. So 140 hours total. Been printing the majority of the week, and I print through Sunday night. This piece here has about 10 hours left. So that's the one nice thing about the Stratasys. You can boot it up, have it go, morning, evening. You know, if it prints dusted on, no problems, and will automatically power itself off. It'll send me email notifications that, hey, it's ready to go. So it's a real nice printer. I got my Rostock Max over here. I got a laser cutter here, and then I can take you my.
What's this fancy outfit you're wearing today, buddy?
Well, ever since I upgraded to SLA printer, you know, these resins are all great, but there is some health concerns possibly just about an irritant. It can become an irritant. Some people can form an allergy to it. Not necessarily, I don't have an allergy, but I want to avoid spilling it on myself. I also work with sodium hydroxide is my in the ultrasonic dip tank. The parts after they come out of the Stratasys machine have soluble support material that have to go into a dip tank filled with mild solution of sodium hydroxide. So I like to protect myself, wear a lab coat. It also makes me look a little bit more professional.
You look like a mad scientist.
Yeah, so we're going to come on in here. This is my little layer where I'm testing out the little SLA, a little RP machine.
Oh, there it is, huh?
Yeah, so this is it. And these are the Petri dishes that you use. So you coat these Petri dishes with a silver, and then here's some solid resin.
So I noticed you got a little laptop over there next to it. What's the reason for that?
So the laptop's required, or you need a computer dedicated for the SLA machine because it drives the RIB software. Is Steve from Creation Workshop?
Yep.
Steve from Creation Workshop is, so depending on the Kickstarter, how they do on Kickstarter, there's a stretch goal. Hopefully they'll be working on with Steve to hopefully come up with a Raspberry Pi server that you can send jobs from your computer to a Raspberry Pi. But it does need a dedicated computer because the only real computer that it has is the Arduino with a special motor driver shield. And that's one of the beauties of the SLAs. There's only one. The simplicity of it is there's only really one axis. So you don't have three axes.
One axis, but you've got the deluxe model with the tilt bed.
But they both tap into the same motor driver. So it's really only one motor driver. So it keeps things really simple, really easy to troubleshoot. If it's not working, you know what the problem is.
Exactly.
It's not plus one axis is out.
Yeah, and then you can emphasize the stepper motor for its accuracy and precision. You know, if you wanted something a little more accurate, you could just switch that out with something a little beefier if you needed to. But I think Brad's done a good job in parting this thing out, and if you get one of these, you're going to get the best quality. He's got a custom board that he made for it as well. But yeah, it seems like a lot of them have gone the route of having a separate little machine. And if you remember earlier in the podcast, I talked about the Acer Iconia W4, which is a Windows little tablet that you might want to look into. It's got a USB port and everything out. It would easily run this, plus it's got an HDMI port.
Definitely worth checking out. Yeah, and then behind me, I got one of my latest projects that I'm trying to figure out how to piece it together. Anybody that's seen the PlotterBot, so this is the brains is a Arduino Mega board, and on top is an Adafruit cloned motor shield, 2 stepper motors, and they go onto this this piece of melamine I have, and it'll be a PlotterBot, so it'll actually draw. So my plan is to put it up on the wall here in the office and have it draw mechanical drawings and just interesting pieces of art that, you know, hopefully my clients walk in and it kind of wows them, kind of gets them to kind of think outside the box, see something that they're not normal to. Because I think these kinds of gadgets are kind of inspired creative freedom. They get you kind of thinking outside of the way that you normally would think, because it's solving a problem differently than you normally would see a plotter with an XY table. This is kind of just an interesting design. So anybody that's interested, go out to Polar Graph. Just Google Polar Graph. The code repository is a Google code base, but polargraph.co.uk is where you can find kind of the people that are behind the PlotterBot magic.
Cool.
So,
very cool.
But thanks for stopping by.
Hey, yeah, thanks. And we'll finish up the podcast now.
All right. So thanks to all our listeners that braved us through the technical difficulties. And
and we'll improve it as time goes on, but we thought we'd try something different, and actually I came out here to actually visit them, but I think next week we'll stick with the traditional method, which was a little smoother, but so I hope you enjoyed being with us and actually seeing what Chris works in, and we'll go from there.
We'll see you next week on All Things 3D.